I think the president promised for bring inflation from double digits. If you look at him in force, they made an address to Parliament. They say they bring inflation from double digits in 2018, when have been 14.6%. They bring them to a single digit. That's, I must say, enable for achieve them. Inflation is over 40% in Sierra Leone. And he also tell we say, in terms of economic development, say they increase domestic revenue mobilization. I want to say now, when the president came into power in the first 3 months, I mean, they give we analysis of revenue where they generate, where they mobilize. But after 3 months, they stop giving us analysis about this revenue. We don't know how. He also say they tackle expenditure, and in government now they resort to domestic, to bank borrowing. And also, they reduce the domestic high domestic debt and external domestic debt. There are many other fiscal policies the way it talk about in terms of the economy, and also monetary policy. In terms of monetary policy, promise for there we get an improved exchange rate, where he say that's going to be based on the diversification of the economy. If you look at the maiden address, you go see and they clearly where he talk about that. When you look recently, the IMF pulled a report about 25 poorest nations in the world. And if you look at that report, Sierra Leone is the second bottom poorest nation as per GDP, as to GDP per capita. Meaning, among the poor nations of the earth, Sierra Leone, we are the second poor nation. Where you go say Popolipo. Now we are the second Popolipo in the world. We mean the president, this government able for remove Sierra Leoneans from poverty in 5 years. With regards to government expenditure, they tell you, say, government they expend more than how government they generate revenue. But one could say that is due to the defense of government will always be say it's due to the employment of nurses, it's due to the employment of teachers. But what we know is that there are many offices where government don't create, where they conflict the other office. Some of these offices were not necessary at all. And this president in a manifesto, we also talk about the excessive traveling of the former president. We also get an economic impact, on the economy. Talk about the excessive traveling. But this president, I must say, has also traveled more, spending beyond 50 billion yuans on traveling. We also get a cost on the economy. If you read the annual unedited financial statement of the government of Sierra Leone, we come out September 2022, you go see some of these analyses of waiting and non give to government, to the president, the office of the president in 2022 alone, which is above 20 billion for travel. Overseas travel. In a country where the excuses where my brother give, they are redundant. They are redundant now. The COVID, the Russian-Ukraine war, individual country then they find individual solution for solve this problem of economic hardship. I not say it's difficult, but in reality, individual countries they find individual solutions. If, for instance, you get a COVID, you are in a COVID period, you reduce traveling. Would you expect president for reduce traveling and save with that over 20 billion the way he spent in 2022 for save with something like 10 billion? We go add to the economy of this country.
Thomas Dixon, quick one. And inside my question where I asked you earlier, one thing I highlight now, the issue of blocking the leakages. This has been a very serious concern and policy statements from the president during the campaign. And even we then be hosting the BBC, they ask how you able to finance the free quality education. They say it block the leakages. For you think say in the last 5 years, then don't block the leakages?
For me, I will tell you, say the leakages have not been blocked. The first audit report, let me go to the president in speech in May of 2018. He said, Mr. Speaker, in Parliament, honorable members, my administration will institute the following additional revenue mobilization measures. 1, evaluate ongoing tax reform, implement all audit report findings and recommendations. If you look at the audit report in the past 4 years, you will see that we don't lost over 500 billion, meaning there are still wastages in government. And government, they try for implement the audit recommendation. Instead, we've seen a situation wherein government, they intimidate the auditor, former auditor general. They can go set up a commission for looking to, and the legality of that would not, the lawyer them, my brother and a lawyer, they don't argue about that. We know they go into that.
Okay.
But some of us, from a moral point of view, who believe, say, the Auditor General, Lara Telopias, was not fairly treated. And because, and we see where Lara Telopias come out, then they audit the office of the president. We still say, we not see any report on the office of the president. So, and this issue about auditing and blocking the leakages, in the recent United States Human Rights Report, they also highlight them. They say the fight against corruption, they target opposition members, they more than they target people within a government, and more especially people away close to the presidency. A case in point is the 2020 audit report, where unveils the office of the First Lady spend hugely without documents and no deal. Waiting the Anti-Corruption Commission see. They say that they go investigate from 1930 from Ernest by Kuruma in Web. Okay. Instead of looking at the issue at hand.
Thomas Dixon.
They're not one. So in terms of wastages, for me, Mr. Keketuwa, where did he come? In terms of wastages, for me, we see last year, year before last audit, we are in forgery of receipt in the office of the president was mentioned. And we not see any action be taken. We not see like the office of the president, like, sometimes not the president can involve. The president not can actually involve. You can get vote controller with it, but we need to see action. Who that go for this receipt? Who that go hire pharmaceutical company for go serve as traveling agency instead of looking for a qualified certified traveling agency?
In all of this, where you
will not see the implementation.
Thomas Dixon, in all of the things where you don't state, it totally the opposite of waiting Kekebi earlier state.
Yeah.
So for this 5 year down the line, is it that all the things we Keke don't point at, say, I mean, this administration don't do, and what you see, is it that there has been a misplace of priority?
In fairness, I will tell you, say, this government, in terms of economic policy, don't implement the single treasury account.
But in all of whatever government they do, now to make sure, say, the livelihood and survival of people
I'm coming,
easy.
in fairness.
Economic challenge.
I will tell you, say, they don't implement the single treasury account, which is good. But the question where my brother asked about wastages, are wastages still, then they occur? Then they still occur.
Yeah, you don't
I don't mention that. And some of these economic things I already mentioned, they impact the poor man negatively. You see, for example, we don't get inflation no rise. Hyperinflation now will get so in our country. The cost of bread and butter, the cost of rice, the cost of palm oil.
Thomas Dixon, the Auditor General's office now like the barrier between the public and the public officials in terms of transparency and accountability. And you make mention of the suspension of the Auditor General. This gets any impact on transparency and accountability?
It gets huge impact on transparency. That is why, for example, we've been the score before now. 3 years ago, we've been the score 80% and above in the MCC scorecard in the fight against corruption. We reduce about 4%. Why do you think we reduce about 4%? Because accountability institution, and just go read the US Human Rights Report where I mentioned. The story about Sierra Leone on corruption is terrible. Even the Auditor General, in case they mentioned that the Auditor General is being intimidated. She was removed. Observers then say that how they remove her not a proper winner because of it do certain things. We know a audit certain institution way to the government enough for audit. That is what observers said in the report. That report is available on U.S. Human Rights Bureau. You go get it. You go see what in and write about Sierra Leone. So for me, first of all, I think we spend excessively, sometimes unnecessarily. If you talk about COVID, that COVID don't affects economy. I agree. COVID affects your economy like all other economy. You go share Ukraine will affect your economy like all other economies. But individual countries take individual action. For example, coming to your question about the least people, look at energy. It is in the period of COVID. For let government empathize with the people and reduce the energy tariff, we increase energy tariff. Today, people are hoping they top up 50,000 euros, and you get 30,000 a unit. Now you meter. Now you top up 50,000 euros. Now 10 euros you get. 10 units. Now you get that 10 units now for few days. So it also don't affect our government for going look at the energy sector in England. We mentioned energy government cut down on energy expenses hugely in the COVID period, so that it no go affect the layman. Coming to the internet, the how you call them internet, all the browse and so on and so forth. You see, we say government increase tariff instead of bringing tariffs, and we not get any knowledge for say even at the sub-region where COVID they increase tariff. We saw side them BBC interview the NatCom PRO, and we enable for defend the increment in tariff.
Thomas Dixon, will they come back to you?
These are all things affecting.
Will they come back? Will they come back to you? Yusuf Keketoma, will they come? We don't get you. If you don't get you bite. If you don't get it bite, yeah. If you don't get you bite. If you don't get it bite.